Good evening and welcome to tonight's podcast for Northern Beaches Toastmasters, who this year are 20 years old. That's right, celebrating our 20th anniversary. My name is Sue Loucks and I've been a Toastmaster for just over a decade. I'm a distinguished Toastmaster. What does that mean? It means that I have completed the education program in total at least once, but there's no need to stop there, as many of our members don't. I have been a member of the Northern Beaches Club since 2012, and I've been a member of up to 4 clubs at a time, but at the moment, only 2. Tonight, I am joined by our club sponsor, Graham Blandy. Graham also is a distinguished Toastmaster, twice over, which means he's done a lot of speeches. And I would like you to hear from Graham tonight about his experience with Toastmasters. Graham, thank you so much for joining me and giving your time to all of us here.
Sure, it's a pleasure. Great to be here.
Now, Graham, you started Northern Beaches Toastmasters 20 years ago. What made you decide to do that?
It's a very, very interesting story, actually. Oh, I find it interesting anyway. Way back in about 2002, I think, so we're going back quite far now. Yeah, I think it was 2000, could have even been 2001, but 2001, 2002 Toastmasters, yeah. I was president of DYRSL Toastmasters, and Jan was president of Valgalla Toastmasters. So it was inevitable we would bump into each other at competitions or training and all those kinds of things. And so we got speaking together, and we were both ambitious. And we needed to either start a club, or there's 2 other options that one can do to gain the Distinguished Toastmaster acclamations. And I was speaking to Jan, and I said, well, why don't we start a Toastmasters club? And of course, that's the most difficult, I think, of the 3, starting it from scratch. And so we thought it was a good idea, and we tossed around a few ideas. And now this is the really interesting thing. It wasn't originally going to be a dinner club. So it was originally, the original idea was to make it an advanced Toastmasters club. Mm-hmm. And we actually went with that idea for a while, but then we decided to, Jan and I decided to, because from the time I mentioned it to Jan, she was all keen to go with this idea and to start a club, and so as we talked, and then eventually we decided that it would be easier to, not easier necessarily, but it would be less time consuming in one way to start a dinner club, because by this stage Jan was a member of my home club, which was DY, and I was a member of her home club, which was Valgalla. And starting another club would be 3 clubs, and so on and so on. I eventually landed up being a member of 5 clubs, and all for good reasons. But that was really the beginning. And so the idea of changing from an advanced club to a dinner club was to make it practical from a time point of view. And it's great to have a meal and a drink together, and it's turned out well. And 20 years later, here we are.
So how do you feel that the club you started 20 years ago, your brainchild, is still thriving? We have nearly 30 members, and we are getting 10 out of 10 distinguished points every year. How does that make you feel?
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I can remember talking to somebody up in the brass somewhere, and they were saying that internationally, I think the average lifespan of a club is 5 or less years. So
Wow.
anything, I mean, that's worldwide.
Yes.
I think Australia's record is a bit better than that.
Yeah.
But clubs start and they disappear. So for me to know that our club has lasted 4 times above the average, I'm very proud of that.
And you say it's a dinner club and not an advanced club or a standard club. What is a standard club format? How is it different?
Oh, DY is a they don't use the word standard. They call it a community club.
Community club. Community club.
Community club. And that basically means anybody who's over the age of 18 can apply to be a member. They usually come and pay a visit, and then if they like the club, then they join, and then we assist with a coach and so on, a personal one-to-one coach. And so these people then grow and grow. And I've seen people come so nervous. I'll tell you a little quick story. Can I tell you a quick story?
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay. There was one guy that came along. This guy, you know how some people sort of shiver?
Yes.
There was one guy that joined the club. And I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. When he stood up to speak, he was doing this. I mean, literally, he couldn't control his arm. It's almost like he was like a chicken. You know what I mean?
Pumping himself up.
Yes. And I wondered whether this guy lasted. But he did. He went on to eventually be area manager, or what they call them now, area director. So the point is that Toastmasters can take the people who are so scared they can hardly stand up.
Yes.
And turn them into confident speakers and leaders. And I just think it's wonderful.
I couldn't agree more. And I've thoroughly enjoyed, that's one aspect of Toastmasters that I didn't think about when I joined, is the enjoyment I get of watching others on their journey. We had one member who came for nearly a year before speaking. Oh. And then he ended up being president, representing us in contests, taking on a lot of leadership roles, and the transformation was unbelievable. So I personally get a bit of a kick out of that. So you explained that a community club, and then Northern Beaches, of course, is a dinner club. So we have a dinner in a restaurant, whereas most clubs meet in a private meeting room at a club or something like that.
Correct.
Church hall. And there's also advanced clubs, which you might have an entry level. You have to accomplish a certain amount to join.
Correct.
Graham, have you taken skills that you've learned at Toastmasters out into the real world, into your career, into your dealings with family, friends, and workplaces?
Well, again, that's very interesting. The reason I joined Toastmasters is because I was in the real world. I'm actually currently a lecturer at a RTO, like TAFE. It's like a private TAFE RTO, which is a training organization. But before that, I was a business analyst, consultant, contractor, business analyst. And I had to do a lot of upfront, what we used to call in the old days, chalk and talk, before they had whiteboards.
Yep.
And I was doing it, but I was always wondering whether there was anything, was I actually achieving what I was supposed to achieve? And then somebody told me about Toastmasters. Now, there was a bit of an unfortunate story there as well. So the person who told me that they were the president of the club, of a club. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, I'll never be like this person. Never. I just couldn't imagine it. And so I didn't join until about a couple of years later. Until somebody else said to me, no, you can, they want you while you don't know anything, so to speak. I mean, if you come with something, that's great. But You don't have to come with any prior knowledge or any prior experience, and we take you from scratch. Who knows where it might end. So I joined it basically because I wanted to learn to be able to speak more fluently and persuasively, etc. And that was the reason, from the real world to Toastmasters, rather than from Toastmasters to the real world. So I took it, and as I was learning, I was using it in the real world. But that was my purpose, was to actually improve my ability to be able to run meetings live. Because some of them we had senior managers and directors and all these kinds of people. And if you mess up, it's embarrassing.
Yes. And so it has helped you over all of these years, and you're still a Toastmaster and still learning?
Still learning. One of the things that I think that a lot of Toastmasters, maybe they do appreciate it, but they don't talk much about it. People think about Toastmasters as leadership and giving speeches, prepared speeches. And we also have impromptu speaking. Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the most valuable, one of the most valuable things you can learn in Toastmasters. To give a prepared speech, you don't do that often. And I mean, unless you're a professional, kind of semi-professional speaker, you don't. And leadership, yes, some people like the leadership, they go for the leadership, and that's great fun. But the boss comes up to you and says, "Graham, how's the project going?" No. Impromptu speaking is what actually gives you the ability to coordinate your thoughts and give a coherent answer off the cuff, as they say. So I think that aspect of Toastmasters is probably the most valuable real-world experience. The other ones are very helpful, for sure. But the impromptu speaking, I think it's not recognized enough.
I totally agree. It's very interesting that when a guest comes to Toastmasters for the first time, they're always nervous about the speeches. But we invite them from night one. Would you like to answer a table topics question? Now, for those who don't know, that is where a table topics master stands up and he will ask a question. Do you prefer cats or dogs? And then name someone who has to stand up at their seat and answer the question for 1 minute. And strangely, most guests say yes, they will participate. And I agree with you. That is more difficult than delivering a prepared speech. So we find that after the first time they've done that, they started to also get their nerves and butterflies flying in formation so that they can then progress on their journey.
Sure.
Graham, I've known you for some time now, few years. And I always remember a saying that you told me when we very first met. If you get out of Toastmasters what I get out of Toastmasters, you'll never get out of Toastmasters.
Correct.
And I have quoted you on that so many times. I run a lot of speechcraft courses where people say, "Oh, do I have to come for the whole 6 weeks?" And then 6 years later, they're still here. Because it is often a case of you don't get out because there's unending learnings. I believe we learn by doing at Toastmasters.
Sure.
And people just seem to keep coming.
That's right. It's interesting you say 6 weeks. When I first started in Toastmasters, the standard was 8 weeks.
Yep.
But trying to get people to commit to a weekly commitment for 8 consecutive weeks is becoming more difficult these days. 6 is fine. I've heard of shorter ones, but I think 6 is probably just about right.
I like it at 6. We get a lot of educationals in, and there is a lot to learn, and we love to share our knowledge.
Well, so, one of the other things is that there's a lot of other things you learn in Toastmasters that aren't just purely leadership and speaking. There's how to chair a meeting and how to keep time and how to take minutes and on and on and on. There's so many different skills that people don't even realize. they kind of absorb them. And then when you actually sit and list them, they say, oh, that's right. I didn't realize I learned that many skills. So Toastmasters is a wonderful organization.
Tonight is a perfect example. 3 months ago, I had to look up the definition of what a podcast was because I didn't know. I'm not a podcast person. And here I am now running a podcast because it's one of the projects that I can do within the educational program of Toastmasters. And I kept looking at it and thinking, oh, that's for younger people. And then eventually I thought, why? I want to learn how to do that. So I've learned how to do that. And I know I've got room to improve, but you only learn something by putting your toe in the water and starting. And this is me starting. So I encourage everyone watching this, come along and join us at Toastmasters. Put your toe in the water and see where your journey can take you. Graham, thank you so much for the time tonight, but more importantly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for starting Northern Beaches Toastmasters, a dinner club on the Northern Beaches of Sydney. We have so much fun. We've been to so many restaurants and experiences that we couldn't have in a community club or dining at those restaurants just as a couple or with a small group of friends. And that is thanks to you. So thank you, Graham.
Thank you. Can I just add one more thing for your listeners?
Yes, please.
Above all the things that you learn in Toastmasters that I've mentioned, and I haven't mentioned everything, I'll tell you one more thing. By just sitting there and listening to other people speak, they speak of the things that they know about, and you learn about so many different things just listening to the other Toastmasters speak about things that for them is very ordinary, but for you and I, we might have never have heard of it. I think there was one person who gave a talk on about how to get a copyright or something. There was a legal person, and I was fascinated. And then another person was a plumber, and they were telling us about how to fix pipes, and you just learn so many things. It's so exciting.
I call that an undocumented feature of Toastmasters because there are things that I wouldn't even think to go home and Google. We've got an engineer or 2 engineers at one of my clubs, and I've learned about shipbuilding and docks throughout England and how they manage all of those docks. Not in-depth knowledge, but something I would never have thought to look up myself. So it's a fascinating aspect.
Yep.
All right, well, on that note, we might say good night. Thank you for your time.
Sue, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
I look forward to seeing you at our 20th anniversary dinner in October 2023. And for anyone listening out there, check out our website and come and join us as well. Thank you, Graham, and good night.
Thank you, Sue. Good night.